CPAT case study, and I will just talk about what the CPAT means, what I did for my client to help her succeed in the CPAT, and what all is required to succeed in the CPAT. So, just an introduction of what the CPAT actually is. CPAT is the Canadian Physical Ability Test. It includes 8 events, and it's based on a pass-fail. So you have 10 minutes and 20 seconds to complete the whole test, all 8 events. If you do not pass, you will automatically fail, and then you get another chance to try. So the National Testing Network actually has in-depth information on all of these events. Talk about how heavy the weights are, how long you have to walk, or if you can run, what qualifies as disqualification. But I'm just going to give a main overview. So the stair climb, they'll give you 25 pounds of added weight onto your shoulders, and you get 20 seconds to warm up in this case. So warm up means you can touch the railing, you can fall, you can step off, step back on. And after that, you get 3 minutes that you have to walk on the Stairmaster with your 50-pound vest, which, by the way, is worn for all of these events, plus the extra 25 pounds. And it will be at 50 steps per minute, predetermined. And after that, you will move on to the hose drag. So the hose drag, you can take the hose, put it across your shoulder or your chest, either one. And this is actually the event where the participant is allowed to run. So when they are running, they're going to run and drag it around a drum, make a 90-degree turn, and they're going to come to a square. When you're in the square, kneel down, pull on the hose drag, hand over hand, and until the marked line crosses the line in the box. You cannot exit that box. Then you walk over to the next event, the equipment carry, which requires you to lift some equipment off a shelf, lower it on the ground, pick it up, walk around a drum, walk back, and put it back on the shelf. Fourth one is the ladder raise and extension. This one can be a little bit confusing because there are a lot of steps. So you come up to a ladder, it is down, you're going to pick it up, hand over hand motion, raise up the ladder, move over to another ladder, where you will have to pull a rope to raise the ladder and then raise it down. If the ladder falls or if you are not careful and really rough with it, you will be disqualified or not pass the test. The ladder raise and extension is followed by the forcible entry. Where you're going to get a sledgehammer, you're going to have to hit a measuring device until you reach a certain amount of force. That's it, then you can move on to the surge. Surge is a dark maze. There are obstacles, and it also narrows at some points. So if you're very flexible, good range of motion, and you're very aware of your surroundings, this one is a pretty good one. Rescue requires you to take a dummy, drag it around a barrel, and come back with it. When you come back with the dummy, you drop it, and you move on to the ceiling bridge and pull. Ceiling bridge and pull, get a pike pull. You do, I believe it was 3 pushes, 5 pulls, or the other way around, and then you do that for 4 rounds. That is basically what it consists of. So the time motion analysis, I kind of first started looking at all the systems that are required throughout the whole CPAT, really. So aerobic capacity on the top is actually found in every single one of the tests, 8 out of 8, not a problem. Anaerobic endurance, we get to 6 out of 8. The hose drag and the surge are a good example of anaerobic endurance, try to be fast. Lower body muscular endurance, also 6 out of 8. Balance becomes 4 out of 8. We see this in the Stairmaster where you have to be balanced and you can't hang on to the railing. Lower body muscular strength, 5 out of 8. Upper body muscular strength, 7 out of 8, which is the equipment carry because you need to be strong, shoulders and everything like that. There's more. Upper body muscular endurance was 6 out of 8. When you get to grip, both grip strength and both grip endurance are 4 out of 8. And agility and kinesthetic awareness are the ones that are recruited in the surge, so in the maze. So that is 1 out of 8 for both of those. So essentially, all muscles are used. Throughout the entire CPAT, no matter what, you're going to use all your muscles mostly. But the main ones are the quads, the hamstrings, the glutes, the biceps, the deltoids, and the forearm, arm, and hand. And although there's more on that list, those would be the main ones. So this shows that lower body is very important, as well as the major upper body parts. The way I categorized those most used is if they were between 6 and 8 out of 8 events. So it's a little bit hard to see, but this is how I divided the time for females. So if Jane, or whoever's doing the CPAT, sticks to these times or gets lower, they should be able to finish within 10 minutes. So this shows that the Stairmaster, the hose drag, the equipment carry, and the ceiling bridge and pull take up most of the time. So focusing on these events, seeing what are required and how to improve those times will definitely cut the total time. These walks that are here, 7 times 20 seconds equals 140 seconds. This is an average. If you take 20 seconds to walk between each event, you have about 140 seconds because each walk is about 25 meters. So as I said before, the rest is 140 seconds total. This is a really good opportunity for you to catch your breath. The rest are in there because they do not want you to get overexerted or exhausted. You do not want to overheat either, so they require that you walk and not run. The stair climb, again, aerobic. These are just some examples of the systems that are used throughout the whole thing. Of course, more are used in different events, but this is just an example. So stair climb, aerobic, we already mentioned that aerobic is used in every single one. The hose drag is strength and aerobic capacity. So it is actually anaerobic as well for 15 to 30 seconds, depending on how long the person is running. So it could take some ATP, some PC, and maybe some muscle glycogen, depending on how long you do actually run for, because those times vary. And honestly, if the person runs really fast, that might not even be too applicable. Then we get to the equipment carry. This is aerobic because you're not going to run with your equipment. You're going to have a really steady pace, which is also going to recruit your endurance there. I would say aerobic endurance and capacity. Now the ceiling bridge and pull is put in there to show that muscular strength and endurance also play a part in the CPAT. These are major in the ceiling bridge and pull, no doubt. So, like I said, this kind of demonstrates that this requires overall fitness. All your systems will be used. All the systems should be trained. So some research actually explains that absolute VO2 max and anaerobic fatigue resistance combined significantly predict a substantial portion of the variance, 82%, in CPAT performance. And I will keep coming back to this. I will keep saying that these are major indicators of success in the CPAT. These are priorities, aerobic VO2 max and anaerobic fatigue resistance, because these are in every event. They are common, and you will see them again in the future, later in this presentation. Physiological tests. Now, these are really standard. There is a lot of lifting, a lot of resistance training, but all areas are incorporated. So this research actually mentioned a few, such as grip strength for equipment carry, hose drag, things like that, ladder raise, bench press, chin-ups, dips, upright barbell rows, standing broad top, and barbell shoulder press. They're strongly correlated with work capacity. And these honestly work all types of body parts, all the muscles. Like I said before, it's really about overall fitness. So some other tests I would probably run would be range of motion and flexibility. I would improve this because in the surge, that could be very beneficial. And as well as a firefighter, if you're a firefighter and you have to get into small spots, or you have to move really quickly, or you have to climb through windows, you're going to want to make sure you have a wide range of motion. If you need to lift people, you want to make sure you can move. Another one I would say is, because we mentioned aerobic capacity being so important, a way to test that is a simple graded exercise test. Not a big deal. You will do one of those and you will know where you are at. Injuries. Now, any injury can occur because the work is pretty abstract. You might be doing one thing, like climbing up trees, climbing through windows, dragging bodies, performing CPR, all kinds of stuff. So, sprains. Actually, the National Fire Protection Association said that 53% of injuries were sprains, strains, or muscle soreness on, fireground operations, and this actually increased 6 to 60% in non-fireground operations. So these are major sprains, things like that, very common. I put ACL tears on there because women are actually 4 to 8 times more likely to have ACL tears. In the CPAT, I would watch for this for training. If we're doing weird moves, if we're, for example, stepping and turning, make sure not to tear that ACL, very common, and it will actually be a very long recovery. Now, added mental health. Mental health is not necessarily an injury, but it's something to be aware of. So firefighters see a lot of stress, a lot of emergencies. It's very stressful. They can be very overexerted, so it is important to recognize this. Priorities. This is back to the research that I mentioned before. Absolute VO2 max, it's up there, as well as anaerobic fatigue resistance. It is up there, it is important. Because if your VO2 max is high, good, but how far will it carry you? Once you are so fatigued, this is going to come in anaerobic, and the longer you can resist your lactic acid threshold or bring it up so that you can be in that phase longer, the longer you are going to go without fatiguing extremely. If this is very low, if you do not have a high resistance, as soon as your aerobic system gets too tired, you're not going to be okay for much longer. You're going to get sore. You're not going to be able to run and work as hard. So that's definitely anaerobic endurance or fatigue resistance. I feel like they're kind of the same thing. I mentioned strength because research showed that women who did not complete the CPAT, like who didn't do very well, actually had significantly lower strength and endurance values. So again, back to that endurance. Strength, all types of strength. So I would make these priorities because most of the events require you to either hit something or lift something or drag something. Those are all weighted. You're carrying weight on your body when you're going through the CPAT. You have to be strong. You have to have enough strength to withstand all that without getting completely tired. So that is both strength endurance as well as strength, just muscular strength. But I did actually focus on building muscles rather than muscular endurance in the program later on, which I will explain. So, Jane comes to me. She wants to improve her CPAT time. She actually did better than most people in their average. 1108. Although that is not a pass, it is better than average. She's 26 years old. She's obviously a female. And she's 168 centimeters and 59 kilograms, which means that her BMI is good. She's healthy in the good range. Strengths. So she definitely outperformed in the VO2 max. In her testing, she was above average, which is a great advantage. Like we said before, it is the main determinant of success in the CPAT, and if that value is high, we can get it higher, but it is also a really good start. Her bench press and her shoulder press, those upper body parts, good scores, above average, strong, which she's going to need, as well as her experience. Because she's taken the CPAT before, and she has some experience on how it goes, she can point out to me what went well, what didn't went well, where she felt tired, and we can get a lot more information to prepare there. She also knows what to expect. She might not be as nervous. Okay, so later on I'll talk about how important lower body is and the muscles that are going to be used. So her lower body strength is not that great. Her leg press was weak. Her reps and her weight definitely way below average. So that's something I would work on. Endurance, same thing. There was a peak test. She was okay. And then her arms, her bicep curl was not as strong as I would have liked. So although she has good shoulders, chest, back, the arms, the biceps and triceps could use a little bit more work, which is going to help with sledgehammers, equipment carries, rope, drags. It's all going to be very beneficial for her. Another thing I'd actually like to point out is her size. Compared to her male counterparts or other people in the field, she's going to have a disadvantage. She's not super tall. She's not super heavy. So sometimes that might actually be a little bit difficult if she has to drag people or she has to lift stuff or reaching things, ladders and things like that. But that might also be an advantage if she has to get into tight spots. So it can be either or depending on the situation. Training priorities are very simple. They're her weaknesses. So like I said, her arms, her lower body strength, which was major, and her anaerobic endurance. I would like to point out that for any other client, my major priorities would be that VO2 max and the anaerobic endurance fatigue resistance. But because her VO2 is good, I'd rather focus more on where she fell short. Another note on the anaerobic endurance is that in all tests, they're mostly under 120 seconds. There are 20-second recovery breaks, so that is really good, but that is also why you want to get that up, so that because that is where most of the activities are, in that zone, under 128 seconds or 120 seconds, and there are breaks in between, so it is not continuous. So peak power is anaerobic, and she actually scored pretty low in that, as well as if you're anaerobic. As a firefighter, you're going to do a lot of sprinting, climbing, and pulling at really fast speeds for short periods of time. Slow warm-up and speed core are very much, they're going to vary. So it's about 10 exercises, doing it as fast as you can, starting at 20 seconds, working up on the time. These are going to be mainly core exercises so that she can build a really strong core, strong back, and then we can build muscles on top of that without really interrupting that whole process. I want to make sure that our posture is good in core. And of course we will be training body parts such as legs within speed core if we're training in that split that day. So it's going to get the blood rushing to those muscles, it's going to get warmed up, it's going to get her ready for exercise. Aerobic capacity, I put intervals. I said two times a week. It is recommended 3 to 5 times, but like I said, it's not a priority. 2 times should be fine. So we're going to up it by 0.5 kilometers each week. Week 1 to 6, that's what we're doing. Week 7, we're going to have an unloading week. Week 7 to 12, we're going to up the intensity rather than the distance. Then we're going to unload again for another week, and then week 14 to 16, we're going to add some grade, so some inclines. I would also like to add that this does not particularly have to be long, slow distance running. It could be biking, things like that. So that also applies for the HIIT. It could be biking, intervals, swimming, things like that. So after aerobic training, we're going to see type 1 fibers. We're going to see increased endurance, increased blood volume, and a bunch of more things. Overall, VO2 max is going to improve. For anaerobic, I focus on both lactic capacity and lactic power. We're going to see both of these. So the first 1 to 6 weeks, lactic capacity, because that is 60 to 90 seconds. That's quite a few of the events. Lactic power is 25 to 60 seconds. We also see that events. And most events are 45 to 60 seconds. So they kind of fall between that range. You also, again, like I said, you want anaerobic endurance because when your aerobic system is done, you want to switch to anaerobic and you want to make sure you can maintain that as long as possible. So we're going to see increase in type 1 and 2 fibers. We're going to see speed neurological recruitment. So what I did is 400 meter and 800 meter. I did this twice a week. So 6 weeks I did capacity, 6 weeks I did power, and I put an unloading week in between each of these. So here's just an overview of the aerobic system. Stairmaster, 40 steps a minute. We're going to work up to 50. We're going to work up to 60 because in the CPAT we are doing 50 steps a minute. If we can get her to 60, and we're doing 50 in the CPAT, if we get her up to 60, 50 is going to be easy. That's when she's going to get added weight. So here, in the last week, we will have added weight. We will have added the 50-pound vest in phase 2 after these unloading weeks. So that this is going to be easy for her. So like I said, it doesn't per se have to be Stairmaster. It could be running as long as it's getting that heart rate up. 40 steps a minute, 3 minutes, rest periods changed. Didn't add too much incline until here in the last week. Lactic capacity, really quick overview. It's a little bit hard to see, but 80%, 85%. I kept the percents about the same. 90 seconds to 40 seconds of work. Changes up depending on what we're training. 3 reps, 3 sets for each, 2 times a week. And we get lots of rest between each set. I put 8 minutes. These are obviously the beginning first week, so this will improve later on. So lactic capacity, see we went from 80 to 85. 90 stayed the same, 270. Rest periods decreased, which is what I changed. So I changed intensity and rest here. Lactic power, as I was saying, week 1, week 6, same changes. We see 85 to 90% in the intensity. We see the rest from 150 to 130. The rest looks about the same. The frequency, the reps, and the sets stay constant. So for strength, I actually chose to do the classical model of periodization because I was not working endurance as much. I was more focusing on muscular strength, as I mentioned earlier, that's what I would be focusing on. So I did 7 weeks hypertrophy. I skipped the whole endurance phase. I went straight to hypertrophy. 1 week of unloading, 7 weeks of strength, 1 week of unloading. So I'm hoping that in 7 weeks of hypertrophy, we can move into the strength phase easily. She's a beginner, so yes, I could have started in endurance, but I did not completely start there because obviously she's capable of getting a good score on the test. She has some experience with weights. So I did the same kind of format here in strength. So 7 weeks, 1 unloading week after each, 3 to 5 sets. The reps and the intensity changes. This is the core difference between hypertrophy and strength. So here, our strength is 80 to 85%, 4 to 6 reps. Lower reps depending on the intensity, which we all know depends on the heavier you lift, the fewer reps. That is the mesocycle. When I do get into strength, I will actually be focusing more on multi-joint exercises. I will be focusing on full body exercise. Now you will see that in the video actually. The splits, yes, I almost forgot. The splits are body parts. However, in strength, I do find myself delving more towards upper lower body or full body. That just depends on the day, depends on the movements. Because they are more full body movements, I do see that splits might need to be reconsidered. Hypertrophy overview, a little bit hard to see, same thing. 60%, here at 75% at the end of the week. So intensity increase, sets increase, reps increase, and it's still 3 exercises per muscle. These are the demonstrations. It is a little bit lengthy. I will link them here so that if you want to watch it on your own time, but I will play them in parts. Alright, so that basically came with all the explanations on what I was doing there. So to conclude, I definitely improved strength and endurance. I think strength is the biggest one. It's going to cut her time so much in the events that actually I pointed out take the most time. We're aiming for 10 minutes, so the time that you saw at the beginning is actually what I would hope that Jane would reach those times in all her events so that she can reach 10 minutes as her final goal. And that's it.